What's going on, everybody? This is Aaron Ramadanov, editor-in-chief of PWPNation.com, and we are here to discuss the state of SmackDown Live. I'm joined by Matthew Jackson, PWP Nation contributor, and Christopher Tofeps, also PWP Nation contributor, and we are getting ready to talk about SmackDown Live. Oh. Hold on one second, guys. I had the I had the actual broadcast in the background, so I all of a sudden just heard my voice come out of nowhere.
It's just a good voice.
Right. All right. So basically, guys, we're here to talk about SmackDown Live. Now, I will give kind of some background on how this idea even came about. Toph, you are somebody who's been very vocal that SmackDown Live has I guess dipped in popularity, dipped in quality, and some people disagree, some people agree. I thought we'd come on here and try to hash it out and see what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, and we'll talk about the current state of SmackDown Live. If anyone has any comments or questions, you can drop them in the chat. I will try to keep an eye on that and make sure that your comments are being read. So Toph, I'm going to throw it to you. Considering this is kind of your thing here, what exactly inspired you to kind of bring this debate up, and why are we all here?
Yeah, it started when Jay Leto, the main man in charge of PWP, he's doing the live Twitter thing, which is cool, where he's taking fan opinions and he likes to discuss what's going on in the show and the product and stuff like that. And he's having some difficulty when he's doing the Twitter thing every Tuesday because he's just, according to him, his own words, he's dealing with a lot of negativity, and he just says that he just thinks fans are being negative to be negative. And if this was any other show like, NXT or Raw or New Japan, I would agree with him. But when it comes to SmackDown Live, it's not just fans being negative to be negative. They're being negative because the product sucks. And if anyone actually thinks that SmackDown Live in its current state is any good, you're either delusional or you're just completely in denial. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, that's kind of your thoughts there. As far as I'm concerned, I think SmackDown, if we're going back to the brand split, which is what we'll take into account from the beginning of the brand split to now, I definitely feel like SmackDown has declined in several areas as far as the quality of the show. I remember when I first started watching the show, after the brand split, there was a certain around SmackDown. It was definitely kind of the fan favorites. Everyone was saying that SmackDown was better than Raw consistently almost every week. And that may have been true. I don't know if I would have necessarily agreed with that. I thought Raw had some strong shows at the very beginning when they first started the brand split, but SmackDown has definitely declined for me in a lot of ways as far as the quality of the matches. I feel like a lot of the times I felt like at first they were definitely putting some more effort into booking and the way they were how they would book outcomes on the show, and it feels like now they've almost gone back to how they used to book SmackDown, where it was just kind of filler and there was really no moments in the entire show. And that's something that I felt the last couple of months. I'll save the gender argument for what they're doing wrong as far as what I think thare doing wrong. I'll save that for a little bit later. But overall, I think SmackDown has definitely dipped, and I do agree with you in some sense, Toph. Matt, what are your overall thoughts on SmackDown Live?
That it's like I said, it's like I was mentioning earlier, it's kind of like it's becoming like a circuit. I think of it like Circuit TNA, 2006, TNA Circuit 2006. Like all the talent in the world there, but just no creative direction. Ironically, because all the people who were in TNA in 2006 are on SmackDown now.
Right.
But Bobby Roode, AJ Styles. I mean, the talent's there, but WWE fans are, especially at the end of the day, it's casual fans. And casual fans don't care about New Japan, TNA, Ring of Honor, CZW, whatever. They care about one product only, WWE. And a lot of these wrestlers, they're just not WWE style wrestlers. Like, I don't know. I watch wrestling with my dad a lot, and he hates AJ Styles. He hates Kevin Owens because they don't look quote unquote like wrestlers. And so a lot of people who that's just a casual fan. And I started noticing too. It really started dropping off after WrestleMania and the shakeup, where it lost, Miz, it lost Cena. Well, yeah, it lost Dean Ambrose. Like all the talent that was making SmackDown special is now over on Raw, and then Raw got SmackDown got Raw's leftovers. So that's what I think is problem. That's what I think is lack of creative direction, being more like just having good talent, but but the talent not connecting. And yeah, sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we all tend to. I wish we had somebody who vehemently disagreed. That's why I wish Jay came on, but because we all kind of agree on most things that's being the way SmackDown's being produced. So, first thing we'll start with the positive, because considering the entire thing started with Jay saying that everyone's being so negative, let's start with the positives. For me, one of the positives for SmackDown is the 2 hours. I love the 2 hour show. I will go to my grave saying that a 2 hours is the perfect time for a wrestling show. It's not too long. It's not too short. It gives you just enough with commercials and everything. It's about an hour and 30 minutes of actual product, and I think that's the perfect amount of time considering you have 2 hours on a prime station like USA. So that's one thing I love about SmackDown is the 2 hours. It's a much easier watch. I usually am able to kind of come in and out of it and not really miss much, and I do like that aspect of it. As far as what they're doing right, I do love that they've really solidified AJ Styles as the United States champion. I mean, I know they did the hot potatoing of him and Kevin Owens with that title, but I think AJ has definitely elevated that title in some respect. I think it's a little more elevated than it was previously. So, I mean, I think that credit goes to AJ Styles. So I do think they're doing a bunch of things right. I mean, I think they have a good foundation of talent, like you said, Matt, where they have all the talent in the world. It's just a matter of executing with booking, and they have hit their mark a couple times throughout the since the brand extension with some great booking ideas and great matches. So, Toph, what do you think they're doing right as far as SmackDown Live is concerned?
You got the 2 hours down. I agree with you there. SmackDown is not a chore to sit through. That's one cool thing about it. The tag team wrestling is great. It may be the same teams, but the tag team wrestling that we see is really good. SmackDown has, perhaps this could be related to the 2 hours. It has an equal balance of backstage segments in wrestling. You know what I'm saying? So whenever Shane or Brian show up, they never take up too much time. They're just kind of straight to the point. It's not like Raw, where there's more segments than matches or whatever. So outside of that and the tag matches, that's pretty much it. I mean, those are strong positives, so I don't want to dismiss them. But those are the only positives that come up to my mind at this moment.
Right. Okay, Matt, what are some of the things that you think SmackDown's doing right now?
Kevin Owens. God, when he was United States champion, the way everything about him was just awesome. I wish he was still United States champion over AJ, and I'm at AJ mark. But when he had the whole Face of America gimmick, how his face would just show up on the floor beneath him, and he would walk around his face. God.
The funny thing about that is the first couple of weeks he would walk directly forward. He didn't really think about it, and then you saw like a couple of weeks later, then he started walking around his face. That's a good pickup there.
Anything about Kevin Owens? I like Sami Zayn. Huge Sami Zayn mark. So I just wish they would do that more. The thing I really like about SmackDown, though, no one is that they're willing to take chances. Like Bray Wyatt. Yeah, for better or worse, like Bray Wyatt, WWE champion. He's a Troy University alumni, same as me. So I marked the fuck out. Oh, Can I swear?
Yeah, sure.
Oops.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know how this works. I don't know if this is gonna get demonetized if I swear. But like Bray Wyatt is WWE champion. We'll never see it again. Never, ever, 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 ever. But it was a cool moment. Jinder Mahal. We'll save it for a little later. I appreciate Jinder Mahal. Good classic heel.
And let's hope we never see that ever again.
I can't. He's doing. I'm like actually, whether it's because they made out to be a racist or what, I don't know. But he's been the best few weeks. He has been he's been okay. But I think. But yeah, they're willing to take chances and there's more of a gimmick show too. If you notice, you have people like Aiden English, Mike and Maria Kanellis. I've never thought I would see a cut gimmick before, but well, I guess that's now belongs to Ellsworth. Speaking of which, Ellsworth, brilliant, love him.
All right, well, we laid out a bunch of good things about SmackDown. That's, no one can come on here and say we didn't talk positively about SmackDown. So let's get to the best part. What's wrong with SmackDown? What's not being has strayed some people away from the brand? What has exactly soured some people on the brand? I'll start with an obvious one, and I've made my thoughts very well known in the group and everywhere else I possibly can. But I feel like, and people might disagree with me, but I feel like the implementation, and that's the key word there, the implementation of Jinder Mahal as the WWE champion has really hurt the brand for me personally. I can't speak for attendance numbers and all that, and if that's affecting those numbers, but I can only speak to what I feel. And when I watch SmackDown, I understand. I will give him that he has gotten better, but I don't know who wouldn't get better being constantly put out there as WWE champion week after week with the smoke and mirrors that is his entrance. That you have his stooges, the Singh brothers. I think the guy has been given every possible as champion, so I don't see how he doesn't get better. But there's something about the way they implemented him as WWE champion that's always bothered me, and I will not let it go because it's important. And Toph, you posted that tweet from Goldust last night, where he said he thinks that wins and losses don't matter, and that's one of the biggest problems I've had with Jinder Mahal is that when he was WWE champion, or when he became WWE champion, he didn't win anything to even be in that match. He won a fatal 5-way with a bunch of nobodies and jobbers that haven't won a match themselves in quite some time. So I just always felt like the way they implemented that really soured me on the brand. And I can tell you for a fact that once he won the championship, I was tuning in less and less to SmackDown. I don't know if that – I can't tell you that I directly said, Jinder Mahal's champion now, I'm not watching the show anymore. But I indirectly said, it's not appointment television for me. I don't want to – I'm not going to rush to my TV set to make sure I see Jinder Mahal, who's the WWE champion, on SmackDown. That's one of the biggest things that I've found wrong with the brand. What's one of the biggest things you've found that's really wrong with this brand? And if you want to comment on the Jinder stuff, you can too.
Oh, who, me or Matt? Who's going?
Matt.
Okay, go on, Matt.
Cool. So, what I think they're doing wrong is they're just not connected. They're kind of stuck behind the times. They're booking a show away at Jim Cornette would or Dusty Rhodes would. Like I understand Road Dogg's the head booker, right? So, he comes from a very, very big wrestling family, especially around down here because his father, was really popular in the Tennessee, North Alabama territory. So I kind of get what he's going for, but it's just not connecting with the fans. And also, I think that the inability for the amazing talent they have to connect with the fans, I think that's just a lot of they have the athletic ability, but I don't think they have the personality.
Mm-hmm.
They took all the people with personality and put them on Raw. And the only two people with personality, the only person with really any personality to mention is Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens, Shinsuke. AJ Styles to me is hit and miss on the mic with his personality. He's more just over with his athletic. Now that Bobby Roode's here, that he should have been a heel, but be that as it may. So yeah, it's just like nobody's really getting over. And another thing is, I just like the people I want to see. I don't get to see. Like I would like to. I love Sami Zayn, but he really wrestles. I love Bobby Roode. He really wrestles. We'll get to see him more now. So yeah, they're just creativity. Like creatively, they're just doing bad, and like getting the actual really good people who need to be there every week on there. And like they bring people in like Mike Bennett or Mike Kanellis, who is super good wrestler, and then they continue, and then they just drop him out and make him look like a joke. Granted, his personal issues and his wife's pregnancy later on kind of makes that understandable.
Right.
And Brian Zane from Wrestling with Regret said it best when I watched his review last week. It feels like it's been the same episode for the last 3 weeks on repeat. Like it doesn't feel like anything's moving forward. It just feels like everything is staying in pace. Like how long? I mean, how many weeks in a row did Jinder come out and do the same exact promo?
Probably a couple months now. Exactly.
How often is Dolph Ziggler going to come out to somebody's interest and say, "Hey, everybody can do what they do, but nobody can come out and do what I do in this ring"? I'm like, well, first of all, you said that already. Second of all, I can name 10 people off the top of my head in the company that can do what you do in that ring. But you've had it's just the same episode on repeat, and the women's division is kind of is just trekking through. You have again great talent. It's just a great personality. And it's just they're just not doing anything. It's just sure Charlotte's amazing. Carmella is improving, even though she's like the female version of Enzo Amore. Except maybe a little bit better, more athletic. And honestly, I just feel like everything's just so rushed as well.
Okay.
This is where me and you is going to differ. I think they should tack on a third hour to SmackDown and a second hour to NXT because they have so much good talent there. And I think with SmackDown's with the spirit of SmackDown, I would think a 3-hour show would be enjoyable, super enjoyable to watch. So that way we could see Ty Dillinger every week, Bobby Roode every week, the New Day. Well, of course you were going to see the New Day every week because they're freaking merch sellers.
Right. Well, I would argue that I don't want to be combative, but I would argue that you can get all those guys on a 2-hour show. It's just a matter of pacing and booking it the right way. So I'm never of the belief that 3 hours is ever necessary for a wrestling show. If it's a week-to-week wrestling show where you have to write that every week. I mean, I do. A lot of people shit on the creative team, but I give those guys credit for having to come up with, I don't know if I forget if I don't think they break up the writers. I believe that some writers are assigned to SmackDown, some are assigned to Raw. But if you look at the kind of grand scope of WWE, you have a writing team writing 5 hours of brand new content every week combined with Raw and SmackDown, and I think that's really difficult. And I think moving it to 6 would be much more difficult. And I don't know. What do you think, Toph? Are you of the belief that you can have a good 3-hour show consistently? I mean, I feel like that's really tough.
No, I mean WCW in its prime, when it was red hot and the hottest thing in pro wrestling, even they couldn't do it for 3 hours consistently. So if WCW couldn't do it, no one can do it. 3 hours is something you should do for like a really special show, or like a WrestleMania. Well, in fairness,
6 hours.
yeah. In fairness, even those shows are too long. But no, 3 hours should definitely not be a thing. But
Well,
it's more of a USA thing. So
yeah, but anyways, that may be true, but I think as you said, WCW. There was also a lot of reasons why they couldn't book the way they wanted to book in WCW. At least pre-Russo.
The thing that WCW did do that was cool. There was a lot of smoke and mirrors when they did the 3 hours. Like one thing that they liked that I wouldn't mind seeing WWE do is that how they would have different announce teams for the different hours. Like that was different. Or how main event guys would come out during certain hours. You know what I mean? That was different.
Right.
Like that was something they did that at least made it a little easier. Like you would never see guys like Hogan or Sting like in hour 1. They were always like in hour 2 or hour 3. And hour 1 would be like the Cruiserweights or Jericho or Booker T or Benoit or like mainly the New Blood guys. And it was like right when hour 2 started, when Monday Night Raw was coming on, that was when you would see the big guns like the Lugers and the Flairs and the Bret Harts when he was there and so on and so forth. So at least like WCW, they strategically used their 3 hours, whereas with Raw, it's just kind of like a drag most of the time,
Right.
Right.
Well, Tove, let us know what you think. What are some of the biggest reasons why SmackDown has fallen off a cliff for you?
Really, if I could sum up the flaws with SmackDown with just one word and one word only, it would be consistency. The show is not consistent, and this goes beyond before the shakeup. Like I agree that the quality went down after WrestleMania, the quality went down after the shakeup, but even before that, like in 2016 and in early 2017, there were some questionable things, and at the time, a lot of fans dismissed it. For instance, right now, I'm going to bring up 2 extremely questionable things that happened, and I guarantee you most fans have forgotten about it, but I haven't forgotten. Heath Slater and Rhino were a tag team, and they were doing the whole Heath's got kids things. Remember, he was like a free agent. He was trying to sign for a brand. Slater and Rhino won the tournament. They became tag team champions. Okay, awesome. They had a run. They lost it to the Wyatt family, which was way too soon, by the way. They could have milked that a little bit longer, but they lost to the Wyatt family. And you remember Talking Smack was a thing. Heath Slater and Rhino got into a disagreement. Remember they lost at first, right? And then they had their obligatory rematch, and they lost their rematch. There was a Talking Smack segment where Heath Slater and Rhino were arguing with each other about whose fault it was. Was there a miscommunication? Is this the end? And Rhino, he got up like mid-conversation and he walked out. He just left Heath Slater there. So it was like they were teasing something like, okay, are they going to be in a feud? Are they done? Is Heath Slater going to be like a singles guy? And at the time, The Miz was the Intercontinental Champion. So the idea at the time was, oh, okay, maybe Heath can be a singles guy and he can feud with Miz. Next thing you know, they're gone for a whole month. You don't see them. They're not on TV. They're nowhere. And then when you see them again, it's at, I think, the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. It was like a tag team gauntlet match or something. And Slater and Rhino were out there, like as if nothing even happened. Like no mention or reference whatsoever to the previous conversation. And last I checked, there's still a tag team on Raw, and they're not even using them. They're just there. They're literally just bodies. Another example that happened was American Alpha. American Alpha were tag team champions. They did absolutely nothing to give them characters. No vignettes. No, like, where were those vignettes we saw with, Chad Gable joking around with Jason Jordan and NXT? We used to see that all the time. You remember, like, those little segments where he would always want to get, like, JJ to say his name, and he wouldn't say his name? Like, just a little silly high school humor. We didn't get any of that. And then, they were in a feud with the Usos, right? And if you remember, they had a really good tag match against the Usos, but it was the SmackDown of WrestleMania. So that was like the go-home show. They could have did that at Mania. That could have been a pre-show. They didn't have to be in that Battle Royal, but they literally did that. They blew that off like the week of WrestleMania. Like, you could have saved that for the post SmackDown WrestleMania thing, or you could have made it like a pre-show match at WrestleMania. They didn't even do that. They just blew it away right there. There's no consistency to the show. Like Jinder Mahal, right? Let's forget the fact that he's a jobber, okay? Forget the fact that his promos suck, that his matches aren't good. Let's forget all that, okay? However you feel about Jinder, put that aside. He's the WWE champion. All right, that's a prestigious honor, right? You don't just get a match against the WWE champion just to get one. There needs to be a reason for it, right? How many times have you watched a wrestling show, right? Say there's a tag team match, and say it's like, there's a champion in the match, right? And say the champion gets pinned in a tag team match, and then the commentators are like, oh, the champion was pinned. This is going to be a huge, improvement for so-and-so, right? Well, Jinder's the champion, right? And so they're trying to build him up. I get that. You're trying to build him up, right? There was one SmackDown where he just had a random match against Ty Dillinger. And I'm like, where the fuck has Ty Dillinger been? This dude hasn't been on TV for months. Like, what did Dillinger, like, I'm happy to see Dillinger, but like, what's the reasoning for this match? Like, I don't care if it's a non-title match. Like, Dillinger is fighting. He's in the ring with the WWE champion. Like, what's the story here? Why is Dillinger having a match against the WWE champion? Like, what's the story? Like, was there some type of backstage vignette? Did Ty Dillinger walk up to Daniel Bryan or Shane and say, hey, man, I really want a shot here? Or, hey, I feel like I'm being underlooked? Like, nothing. It was just, it's like, here's a match and just accept it. Where the fuck is Luke Harper? Where's Harper? He's been dead since, the AJ thing. Speaking of AJ never got his one-on-one WWE title match. And I'm going to use this as an example. And some fans are going to be like, oh, no, it doesn't count. No, fuck that. It does count. Social media is 2017, okay? YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, they use all of that for storylines now. We can all agree they use social media to propel storylines, right? They do that, right? Well, if you go on WWE.com, it's somewhere, like when they have those exclusive interviews that's like on YouTube or like the WWE.com website. This actually happened. It's on the website. It's on YouTube. You can search it at WrestleMania. Like after AJ Styles beat Shane McMahon, after he beat him, like WrestleMania was still going on. They interviewed AJ, and it was like, hey, AJ, you just beat Shane. What are your plans for the future? And he said, I want to fight the winner of Bray Wyatt versus Randy Orton. That's what he said. They put that on their website. They put it on their YouTube account. So that, that counts. They're using social media to propel the storyline. So AJ said, I want the winner of Bray and Orton. Next thing you know, he's in the U.S. title scene the very next night, and he's been there ever since. And there's been no explanation whatsoever. There's no consistency at all. There's no consistency. And you have people like what Matt was saying earlier, guys like Harper, Dillinger, you have Mike Bennett. You have these people that just disappear off TV for weeks and weeks. And there's like no explanation. Like, where are they? Are they injured? Are they filming a movie? Like, what's the story here? Now, Raw by no means is not a perfect show. Raw sucks. Well, I mean, actually, you know what? That's me being a little harsh. Raw actually has been pretty good lately. I'll give them that. But the main point I'm making is this. Despite all the issues that Raw has, for better or for worse, the one thing I will give Raw, whatever storyline they're doing, whether it's a good storyline or whether it's a bad storyline, they finish it until the end. They see it out until the end, and then when the story is done, then they move on to the next feud. Like right now, Finn Balor is in this annoying feud with Bray Wyatt. No one gives a fuck. God. They just want it to end. Whatever. It's stupid. But they're not just going to randomly end the feud. They're going to finish the feud, and then when it's done, then Finn will move on to whoever's next. They don't just Raw. They will not just drop a storyline. SmackDown has done that consistently. They start stuff, and then they just drop it. Like, what happened to that? Like even though she sucks, right? Like Tamina, right? Tamina, she's not very good. Like Lana teamed up with Tamina. Lana's like, under my management, you will be the next women's champion. So they're building it up like, oh, okay, this is going to lead to something. Where the fuck is that? What happened to that story? Nowhere.
Actually, it was on YouTube. They did a montage of her making Tamina ravishing.
Okay, well, that's something. But you see the point I'm making, right? Like there's no consistency on this show. And what pisses me off about it is guys like Goldust and Road Dogg, like there are fans on Twitter like myself that are bringing up all these inconsistencies that I just mentioned. So it's not like they're on Twitter saying your show sucks or do your job. Like there's fans on Twitter literally making detailed blogs pointing out all this stuff. Like it's one thing to say, oh, Matt, like you suck at your job. And then there's someone like giving you criticism, you know, and like actually breaking down what you could do to be better. Like there's fans doing that on Twitter, and Road Dogg and Goldust, they can't take it. They've become yes men. And if you call them out on it, and it's like they're not being disrespectful. Like, you know how it is on Twitter, how fans are just disrespectful, like, oh, you suck, or no one cares about you. Like fans are not doing that. Like people are tagging Road Dogg, they're tagging Goldust, bringing up legit criticisms, and then they get triggered and they just block you. They're
Right.
It's like they're blocking you. And what pisses me off is like, and what pisses me more than anything is Road Dogg, because Road Dogg, this dude could not beat anybody but Billy Gunn, and Billy Gunn couldn't beat anybody but Road Dogg. So these two were like stuck in jobber hell. I remember this as vividly. Like I saw the post the other day on PWP Nation. Like, what year did you get into wrestling? You know, 1996 was the year where I can recall, you know, everything, and I'll never forget it. I remember guys like Billy Gunn and Road Dogg. They weren't even on Superstars. They were on that show Shotgun. Remember Shotgun?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, they were on Shotgun, and they were jobbers every week.
Shotgun Saturday night.
Shotgun Saturday. That's where they were. They were at the complete bottom of the totem pole. They were not doing anything. And then when they teamed up and when they became the New Age Outlaws, it worked because they were winning their matches. The Outlaws would not have gotten over if they teamed up only to lose. So when someone like Road Dogg gets on social media and says wins and losses don't matter, it makes me just want to fucking just like put my hand through the keyboard and just like literally like choke the life out of him. Like who the fuck are you to say that? Like, if anything, of all people, you should know that, you know, like that's why I'm so disappointed. I'm like, Road Dogg, like you of all folks should know that wins and losses do matter. And if anyone should know the importance of tag team wrestling, it's him. He got over in a fucking tag team. And, you know, like it doesn't matter now. JJ's on Raw. Chad Gables was Shelton Benjamin, but when you really look at it, like American Alpha, like from top to bottom, like they were really just horribly utilized. They were not used well at all. And speaking of that, where's Breezango? There's another one. Where's Breezango?
I was about to bring that up. I was going to actually mention that too with you, when you were talking about storylines they've dropped. I mean, they've on several occasions they have said either next week, 2 weeks from now, we will find out who's been attacking Breezango on these vignettes that they've been doing, these videos, and we still haven't gotten the answer for that. So it's like, I do agree with you on a lot of what you were saying, where SmackDown seems to kind of start things and then they realize either they don't want to go down that road and they just kind of make it disappear, or they try to move something around and it just doesn't end up working. One of the examples that I have, and I think this problem, like you said, Toph, is more of a WWE problem than a SmackDown Live problem, where there are no consequences for their booking. Whereas, for example, perfect example was this past Monday Night on Raw, where you had Roman Reigns getting absolutely destroyed by the Miztourage. As a wrestling fan, if anybody's been watching wrestling for more than a year, I guess you could say, you know that this spot right here is when the baby faces come out and they help the other baby face. That's just kind of how wrestling works. The baby faces help each other out. The heels help each other out. That's just kind of how it goes. I'm not saying that they should have pulled the trigger on that segment right then and there where the Shield comes out and help Roman. But I'm saying there's no baby face in the locker room that's going to come out and help Roman Reigns. I mean, there's nobody, not one baby face. And that's a lot of the reasons why SmackDown has a lot of the reasons why you're bringing up what you were bringing up was that there's no consequences for their booking. There's no competition that is going to make them pay for that. You know what I mean? There's no pressing issue. There's no urgency to make sure that the show is from start to finish 100% booked correctly, and to make sure we have a hot show tonight, and to make sure that we're putting out our best product, because there is no urgency. There's nobody coming. There's no ratings war with anybody. There's no one coming after them as far as a product is concerned or anything like that. One of the reasons why we see a lot of lapses in booking on SmackDown is because there is no consequences. Road Dogg from all reports that I've seen, Road Dogg, like you said, Matt, is running the show over there. And if he wants to be a booker, then he's got to take criticism. I mean, that's I'm no booker. I've never booked a show, but I do know enough about booking to know that booking comes with the good and the bad. And if you're gonna get praised for a lot of this good stuff that SmackDown is going on, I've praised Road Dogg for several things that he's done on SmackDown that have worked out great. But criticism, he's also got to take the criticism, look at it, see if it's valid or not, which it's pretty easy to do, and learn from it. And that's the biggest thing that I've had with Road Dogg is he doesn't seem to be learning from his mistakes. He seems to be repeating them over and over again. Maybe there's no one there to filter his ideas or filter what he's booking. I'm assuming Vince McMahon is still approving on everything, whereas carrying out those booking ideas, I'm not sure what exactly the relationship is. But I think Road Dogg or whoever's booking SmackDown needs some kind of balancing weight to help them take the mistakes that they've made and try not to make them again. That's one of the biggest things that I've seen from SmackDown. I was going to actually bring up another point, which I forgot. So I'm going to throw it to you, Matt, and say if you have any response to what Toph said, what I said, if you have any other comments or questions about what we're doing here.
Well, again, like I'm going to piggyback on the All American Alpha thing. That was just disgusting, man. They brought a very, very popular act up from NXT. Right? They did this. It's what I call doing the Apollo Cruise, right? They took two people up from NXT who could use more time in NXT, right? Well, once they got there in NXT, nothing happened with them, right? They were tag team champions for 2 months, and we didn't see them. There was a 2-month time from when we saw them, and then when they lost the championships to the Usos. Mm-hmm. And dude, that's bullshit. Like Raw isn't the best show at all when it comes to using its talent. Like poor Bray Wyatt, man. But you know, if you're going to have the talent, use them. And just SmackDown there's just no reason for what they're doing. If they can't decide what they want to do with people, like just come up with something in the meantime. Give them throwaway matches, something. Keep them on the show. Like even if they did one, I mean, there's only like if they want to like make certain superstars look, like an attraction, like Shinsuke Nakamura, who didn't wrestle for a month after his debut. That's because they wanted it to be special, which works. But we saw him every week, right? At least do that. Give them backstage vignettes. Toph was absolutely right about that. Like, give us fresh in our memory. Don't be like, oh yeah, American Alpha are tag team champions, huh? Oh yeah, they lost to the Usos, huh? Well, that's good for them, I guess. But or Ty Dillinger, where the fuck has he been? Like before this whole thing with Baron Corbin. And for the love of God, fire Baron Corbin. I don't know what. But that's getting off on another tangent. Baron Corbin's everything that's wrong with SmackDown. End of discussion. Just kidding. But no.
What's it called? But my point, I was actually make a point about American Alpha is the crazy thing about American Alpha is you had Gable and Jordan, right? The original reason why those two were paired up was because they needed each other. They needed each other because Chad Gable. Listen. I think Chad Gable can be more than okay on his own. He's got every possible tool you need to be any type of great performer. He's got a good look. He's got great in-ring ability. He's got charisma, all that great stuff. But obviously in WWE, in the WWE universe and in Vince McMahon's world, he's too small. So they paired him up with someone like Jason Jordan, who's bigger in charisma. So they needed each other. These two were brought together because they work off each other and they needed each other. So I don't understand personally of breaking them off, making Jason Jordan a single star, bringing in Shelton Benjamin, who has proven he can be a single star on his own, pair him up with somebody like Gable who really doesn't need. I mean, when I walk away from the entire American Alpha thing, I just think that all three of those guys would be much better off if you had Gable and Jordan be together and Shelton Benjamin in Jason Jordan's role on Raw, where he is on his own going after the IC title or whatever. I just think they overbook sometimes, and they overthink when wrestling is really simple. I mean, when you break it down to like the very core of how to book something, it's simple. Bad guy, good guy goes over. It's all simple stuff. So a lot of the times with SmackDown especially, and this goes back to Road Dogg being a smart booker, or lacking of smart ideas, is it seems like he sometimes tries to overproduce content. He tries to shove maybe 3 hours of a program into 2 hours, or he tries to extend.
You know what that sounds like? It
sounds
like Russo. You're right. That
Right.
sounds like Russo. I don't want to be mean or anything, but it
Right.
sounds very, very, very similar to Russo.
Speaking of,
Right, and Russo, as we all know, he needed a filter. With a filter, like his booking ideas were fine, and maybe that's what SmackDown needs. Maybe it needs a filter, and it's too soon to say. It's not like SmackDown's like near death or anything, like TNA or GFW, whatever they call themselves these days. But if this type of booking style continues, I could totally see fans just not really caring about this show.
right.
Like if the booking style like this, if it continues like this and unchanged for like a year, then I see SmackDown going back to how it used to be, where fans just didn't watch it at all anymore.
Right. I mean, at least they don't have a lady. At least they don't have like a lady who can way past her menopause time giving birth to a hand. So at least we don't have to gone that far yet, though.
Yeah.
Right.
He might bring back Mickey James for that angle. I'm sorry, but
one of the things I did want to bring up also was the idea that we have, and this is my biggest thing with SmackDown as well, is and this is a sole like opinion based thing. I'm not saying that this is the way it is, but you have, if you look at the structure of SmackDown Live, right? You have Jinder Mahal, which I don't want to keep harping on Jinder, but Jinder Mahal as WWE champion, and then you have AJ Styles as the United States champion, feuding with he was just feuding with guys like Kevin Owens. Sami Zayn was involved for quite a little bit of time. You have guys like Sami Zayn who's in the mid card, kind of floundering. But Dolph Ziggler, another guy who could do much more. And SmackDown, the idea of the brand extension, if I'm not mistaken, was to elevate guys who don't have a current main event position, elevate guys who should be in the main event but aren't. And I feel like they've missed that opportunity where you could have guys like if you look at the SmackDown roster, why aren't you doing AJ and Nakamura? I mean, maybe they're saving it for WrestleMania. I'm not going to keep my hopes up too high, but why aren't you doing matches like that? Why aren't you doing Kevin Owens and AJ Styles for the title instead of for the United States title? I understand maybe they're trying to elevate the United States Championship, but has that really worked? I mean,
yes.
I don't know. I mean, is the United States Championship anywhere? When people look at the United States Championship now, are they looking at it like, wow, this is some prestigious title that has really been elevated by Kevin Owens and AJ Styles? I don't think so. I mean, I don't see how someone can make that connection.
Well, if I may, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just didn't want to lose my point before I had how that is. Well, as far as now, I got two counterpoints. One, we are in the know, right? We're smart fans. We know what the Intercontinental and U.S. titles are, right? Their mid-card title is meant as a stepping stone for people, typically, right? So it will never be elevated to us because we see it as only that. We have to look through the eyes of the people who are like casual fans and be like, well, what do they think? Do they think it is? Because as long as me, you, Tolf, we'll always see the Intercontinental and U.S. titles as stepping stones. Hell, back when they had four champions on one show: the WWE World Heavyweight, Intercontinental, and U.S. title. The U.S. title is more akin to the European title back in the day.
Mm.
But anyway, so I think it's a lot better than where I think the U.S. title scene is a lot better than what it was circa 2014, 2013. Like John Cena's done a good job elevating AJ Styles, Rusev. Oh God, they need to make him permanent United States champion. But and then
they need to make him a babyface is what they need to do. But
he just has that natural personality. I think Kill Rusev has gone far enough. But anyways, and another thing is people are you're saying that they're not elevating people, but they elevated Jinder Mahal, and people are bitching about that, right? I mean, Dolph pretty much calls him a jobber. So
right, but the difference is that I'm talking about people that are being elevated, who are on the cusp of being in that main event picture. Who, because I think we can all agree, right? The brand extension, in theory, is supposed to give exposure to guys who are on the cusp of being main eventers that are not. Can we agree on that?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, in what way was Jinder Mahal a main eventer on the cusp of being one?
Well,
the cusp of being a main eventer.
Sometimes you just pull people out, just pluck people out, you know?
Right. And that's the problem.
I mean, so it's worked in the past, though. Like, take John Cena. He was plucked like that once he started doing that rapper gimmick. Mick Foley.
I mean, I think John Cena was groomed from the very beginning. I mean, they brought him in as the prototype. Remember? I mean, that was.
If you ever listened to his interview with the Edge and Christian, he said that he was on the verge of being let go before. That it was the three that were being groomed of the OVW4 were Brock Lesnar, Dave Bautista, and Randy Orton. He was the odd man out. So
right at that time, but I'm saying once he was brought into the company, once he was on SmackDown, they were presenting him as someone who's going to be the next, I guess guy, but one of the next guys, I would say.
I don't really, I disagree. I think I think it was just a case of the crowd getting him over more so than Patrick getting him over. Like, ironically, he was kind of Daniel Bryan before he was Daniel Bryan, before there was Daniel Bryan. But
yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily sure that's. I don't necessarily agree. I mean, we can agree to disagree.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I have to debate is. But and then but back to my original point is sometimes just plucking people out of obscurity works. You know, like it worked with it worked with like Bret Hart because he was nothing but a tag team guy. It worked with Shawn. Shawn Michaels kind of got over with the fans too, the personality. For every Jinder Mahal you have somebody else it worked with. Going with I guess going with no, I don't really. I was going to go with a WCW example, but I'm not smart and educated enough with WCW to give an example of that. Chris Benoit, when he won the title in 2000, granted, the title was already not that great, but they just plucked him out, Booker T was somebody else they plucked out.
Yeah, but I would say the difference between those guys and Jinder Mahal is that at least they were built up to that eventual breakthrough. I mean, Jinder was plucked out of nowhere, whereas these guys, you brought up Bret Hart. Bret Hart was a legitimate tag team wrestler, former IC champion, guy who was respected as an incredible worker. Shawn Michaels, another guy who was respected as an incredible worker, was getting over with fans. Nobody was clamoring for Jinder Mahal to be title picture.
Maybe the Indians were. We don't have any idea.
Maybe, yeah, that's true. I mean, I can't dispute that.
So, but I just want to focus on Jinder Mahal because we've been shitting on Jinder Mahal. Well, two out of three of us have been shitting on Jinder Mahal this whole thing. I think Jinder Mahal has been doing a great job. He's a good old school foreign heel, which shows the way Road Dogg. Yeah, okay, I said it right that time. Road Dogg thinks when he books because he's booking Jinder like an old school foreign heel, and now Jinder Mahal is even more old school with his racism. I mean, did you hear his reaction last Tuesday? And it was live.
Yeah.
He was getting booed out the arena. Like, that was almost on the level as Roman Reigns' seat. And it could be the right, just because it's the right opponent, but at the same time, what is wrestling but a giant theater? Sometimes for every Javert, you got to have a Jean Valjean,
Right.
Well,
well, let's bring in Toph, because we've kind of we've forgotten about Toph over there. So Toph, what are your thoughts on what we were talking about?
On gender? Basically, he's an experiment and a failed experiment, just like Jack Swagger. That's kind of how it was. The thing about gender, though, what hurts him, it hurts the title, and it hurts the brand. I can forgive the fact that gender is not good in the ring. I can forgive the fact that his promos are garbage. I can forgive the fact that he's a jobber to the stars. I can actually get over all that, because we've had champions before that weren't very good in the ring. We've had champions before that weren't very good on the mic. I can get over all that. I mean, we lived through Diesel, for God's sake. So I can actually get over all that. But what does not help gender, what doesn't help SmackDown Live, but more importantly, what doesn't help the WWE title, gender is not even the focus of the show. He's not even the focus of the brand. Consistently, he's not, which goes back to what I said before about SmackDown Live lacking consistency.
Well,
he is not the focus. The show, every week where gender shows up, he is usually somewhere between the 8:35 to 8:40 hour, somewhere like towards the tail end of hour one. And I could be wrong, but I believe he's only main evented like twice. When they did Cena Nakamura, and then Nakamura won, and then it showed gender in the skybox. And then when they did the failed cash in, where Corbin tried to cash in on gender and failed, and even then the focus was on Corbin not cashing in and not gender. The focus on the main event is AJ, the U.S. title, the tag title matches, with the woman, whatever they're doing, Owens and Shane. Like, he's not even featured as the top guy of the brand. It's like right now, if you ask a fan, hey, who's the WWE champion? Oh, yes, gender. Then if you say, who's the U.S. champion? AJ Styles. Who's the Universal champion? Brock Lesnar. Who's the Intercontinental champion? Miz. Like, who the other champions are. But when you say who's the WWE champion, you have to actually think about it, because you don't really know. They're not. Gender is, he's bringing the quality and the prestige of the belt down, and I'm not gonna blame him for that totally. He doesn't deserve the full blame for that, because truthfully, they've been hot potatoing the WWE title all year. In fact, I would even go as far as to say, here's the future article, Aaron, if you want to write it. I think that 2017 could be argued as one of the worst years for the WWE title, because it's been a hot potato for the first half of the year, and then for the second half of the year, it's been with Jinder Mahal. Like, literally, what has this belt done all year? This is really one of the worst years for the WWE Championship in general.
Well, the funny thing is, though, well, let me just really quickly tell this real quick story, because I was actually talking to somebody about wrestling the other day, and it was a buddy of mine who doesn't watch it regularly. He used to watch it here and there and all that stuff, and he asked me, champion, who are the champions right now? And that's a kind of a basic question you get from a lot of people who don't watch the product very regularly. So you kind of it was my brother. There you go. I just remembered. My older brother, who doesn't watch regularly, he's the one that got me into wrestling in the first place in the mid-'90s, or late 2000s, that Attitude Era. He asked me, who are the champions right now? And I started with Raw. I said Brock Lesnar, Universal Champion. He's feuding with Braun Strowman. And then he's like, what about SmackDown? I said, well, there's this guy named Jinder Mahal. And he's like, who? And that's one of the biggest issues, and I think it's an overlooked issue, is that with casual fans, we were talking about casual fans and how they view SmackDown. My brother, I would say, is the most casual fan among them. I mean, he watches, here and there and watches some of the bigger shows. And he just didn't know who that was. And I had to explain to him, I had to show him a picture. Once I showed him a picture, he still didn't know who that was. And I said, yeah, he's a newer guy, I guess you could say. They've kind of brought him up recently, and he doesn't get it. And that's one of the things I think is key, where if we're talking about casual fans, we're talking about bringing casual fans back. I don't know if you have a brand already like SmackDown, which is already kind of treated as the little run to the litter, the ugly stepsister to Monday Night Raw. I don't know if having somebody like Jinder. I mean, you could take chances. That's fine. I'm all for taking chances. Once the chance has been taken, we need to then reevaluate if the chance was worth it, if the risk was worth it, and is it working? And I think a couple months into the Jinder Mahal reign, I think I can agree that's not working. I don't think his in-ring talent is very good. I don't think he's great on the microphone. I think he's been giving the same promo for the last 3-4 months, and there's something lacking there for me. And maybe it's just me. I know it's not just me, and I'm gonna let you go right here, but I'm gonna let you talk right now. But one of the biggest questions that I think we should talk about in wrapping up here is the attendance numbers, and that's kind of been one of the biggest things that's been going around on the internet lately. Is the pictures of SmackDown attendance? And what is causing SmackDown to not draw as much as Monday Night Raw, and even Monday Night Raw is struggling. So Matt, go ahead and talk what you were going to say, and then we'll talk about the attendance thing.
Right. Okay. It's just Toph made me think of a very similar situation back in 2012. With CM Punk. CM Punk was never the focus of the show, and he was the WWE champion for a whole year, right? He didn't lose it until 2013, and so 469 days, something like that, and
434, I think.
434 days,
434 days.
Yeah.
So, and he for the whole entire 434 days, I don't think he only main evented 2 pay-per-views as champion.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in a lot of ways, I'm just drawing similarities there, as far as the title not being taken seriously. So it's just if they feel like they have more important feuds, because some feuds they shouldn't, but some feuds just overstep the WWE Championship. Like if you look at MMA,
here's the thing, Matt. I see where you're going with that.
Mm-hmm.
Punk was champion for 434 days, and for most of his reign, he was not the focus. But see, the thing about it is, in wrestling, whenever you have a world champion that's not the focus, whatever is the focus usually leads to that conflicting with the title. So when the champion eventually loses, you're like, oh, okay. For instance, CM Punk was constantly upstaged, unfortunately for him, by part-time guys. And during that period of time where Punk was champion, Vince McMahon had his plan, just like how he has his plan right now. During that period, Vince was obsessed with John Cena versus The Rock. That was just his plan. The Rock was going to be the guest host at WrestleMania 27. They had their match at WrestleMania 28, and The Rock said himself on Twitter that he had already agreed, as of like when he agreed to be at WrestleMania 27, that he was going to work with Cena twice at WrestleMania, which would have been 29 and 2013. So when Punk was, not the focus, he was in the background to Rock and Cena the whole time. So when Punk finally lost the belt, he lost it to Rock, which of course led to Rock Cena, which pissed off a lot of fans. I didn't like it. A lot of fans didn't like it. But I'm bringing that up because Punk was upstaged and he wasn't the focus. But at least for Punk, he can take comfort in knowing that when he lost the belt, at least it led to something. What hurts Jinder is not the focus. And all these other feuds going on have no significance to the title. You see what I'm saying? Like Owens and Shane. What? Okay, so Owens is in a feud with Shane, but how is that affecting Jinder? That doesn't affect him. That's just Owens and Shane being booked better. Like Owens is a heel. He's not going to beat Shane and then like challenge Jinder. That doesn't make sense. AJ's the U.S. champion, so he's like, how? Like, where's that story? Like, where's that one guy in the background to justify Jinder being like not a focus? The guy's not there. It's just not good booking, and it doesn't make the brand look good because Jack Swagger, I mentioned Jack Swagger before. Jack Swagger was an experiment as well. I'll be honest with you, I liked Jack Swagger in ECW. I liked him when he was in ECW. I liked his jock thing where he was like the kind of cocky douchebag jock. I liked Jack Swagger. He had some good matches with Matt Hardy. and he had some great matches with Christian, very underrated. And I remember he got drafted to Raw. He had like a really good match with John Cena, and then after that, Swagger was just there. He wasn't really doing anything. I remember he would have like every now and then you would see him on Raw, fight like a Carlito or an MVP or like a Santino Marella, but he was just sort of there. And then they did that Money in the Bank match at WrestleMania, and he just won out of nowhere, like no build, nothing. And then he cashed in, and it was, a lot of fans didn't like it. They thought it was kind of rushed, and it was. And it was definitely one of the weaker World Heavyweight Championship runs. But despite that, even though Swagger wasn't really, he could have been booked better. But what I'm trying to say is when he won the World Heavyweight Championship, as unusual and as weird as his reign was, when he was the champion, he became the guy of the brand. It was like all of a sudden everybody wanted a piece of him. You were seeing Randy Orton versus Jack Swagger, Big Show versus Jack Swagger, Rey Mysterio versus Jack Swagger, Edge versus Jack Swagger. Like all of a sudden, like Swagger was like pushed as this big deal. I remember Swagger even had like a random match against The Undertaker on Raw. It was crazy. Like I remember this vividly. It was like 2010. It was during the guest host days, like before the Nexus, like when things were really bad. But yeah, it was like so even during that period of time, like whether or not Swagger you took him seriously or not, they at least attempted to push him and present him as a big deal. But it's like with Jinder, they're not doing that. And what makes it frustrating is, like you said, Matt, like I'm in the same boat as you, is that SmackDown has the roster of talent. So I would love to see like Jinder against Dillinger where it means something, or Jinder against Luke Harper where it means something, or Jinder against Sami Zayn. Like, but it's like instead what they're doing is, I think you said it earlier, is that he's just coming out week after week cutting the same promo, and it's just kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just weird. I don't. His booking, I want to like him, but the booking is just like, yeah, like what,
Right.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing with me, and I don't want to go into another whole rabbit hole of championship legitimacy, but for me, this is just the way I am. It probably goes to I can attribute it to watching New Japan, but for champion, and that's the thing. New Japan has really shifted my view of how champion should be and what a champion is as far as pro wrestling. There's something that's just not there. And I don't know if it's the booking. I don't know if it's Jinder. I don't know if it's the way they brought him up. But there's something when I watch him that's just not – they're not selling me enough on Jinder Mahal. And it's when I watch him as the champion and I look at him and I look at the screen, I just don't see a champion there. And that's just something that maybe I'm struggling with. But, if you compare it to New Japan, which you really can't, but again, you compare it to New Japan, you have someone like Okada who's been the champion for so long, who wins and wins convincingly, and he's presented as champion, and when he loses, it's important. And it's I don't know. I think that WWE could learn, especially SmackDown, could learn a lot from New Japan, but that's a whole nother conversation we could have that I don't really want to have right now. One thing I wanted to touch on though is the attendance, because that's kind of been the most polarizing subject of the SmackDown Live thing that has been kind of taking over the internet. People have been posting those attendance pictures, and you see half of the arena empty. Just to preface our conversation here, I have looked into the numbers from Meltzer, and I went on the Observer and I looked at the attendance numbers, and attendance is up. Overall, last year, attendance was up, and I believe it's still up going into 2017. The caveat there is, though, they're running more events. So that's, attendance is up, but they're running more events. So just keep that in mind. So, Toph, attendance, how much does that have to do with the product? How much does it have to do with maybe it being live on a Tuesday? Maybe SmackDown just isn't appointment attendance for WWE fans. They don't see it as an important event. What's your overall thoughts on the attendance, and what do you attribute it to?
Right now, the brand arguably has no star power, like what Matthew said earlier, is that SmackDown mostly caters kind of like to the a little bit more to the hardcores and the more the kind of like the independents, just based off the roster. Personality wise, really, the only real draws on the show is New Day. I could be wrong. I think they're one of the biggest merch sellers there.
Mm-hmm.
Their storylines are not really good at the moment. The WWE champion to most people is not particularly interesting. You combine that with Raw being a little bit better. You combine that with your usual school starting again, football starting up again, baseball coming close to the World Series, New Japan gaining some steam and getting bigger, holiday season, and it's just a perfect storm of just disinterest and stuff like that. The photos have been getting big, and at first when the photos went viral, people were like, well, maybe this is before the show started, or maybe it's during 205 Live. But the past few weeks, those photos that you've been seeing are happening like during the SmackDown Live show. If you can go on YouTube, or if you DVR SmackDown, if you check out the main event between Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, there's a spot in the match where they're outside and Owens throws Sami into the guardrail and the camera zooms out. And for a brief second, you can see an entire front row of seats and they're completely empty, totally empty. So to anyone that's listening, there's the regular camera you see, and then there's the hard camera. The hard camera is what's always being shown on TV. So like when the wrestlers are in the ring and when they're cutting a promo for a segment, you always see the fans behind the wrestlers. That's where the hard camera is. And so that whole area where the hard camera is stationed is completely empty. It's basically like half of the arena is taped off. That's like what TNA would do when Hogan and Bischoff first got there, and when they were like overly ambitious and they would try to book like a venue that had like 12,000 seats, but they could only get like 2,000, 3,000 people. And so they would like tape off half the venue so it wouldn't look as bad when they did like a zoom off or something like that. And speaking of that, there's the whole being the elite thing, the Young Bucks getting the cease and desist, when they invaded Raw. And I can tell you from a personal source, it's not Meltzer, it's not Alvarez, but he's a very good friend of mine. He's in the business. I don't want to expose him like that. He's still in the up and ups, but I can tell you that it wasn't the too sweet thing that they've been doing, and it wasn't basically like none of the stuff that the Young Bucks did. That's not what basically started the cease and desist. If you can go on YouTube and if you can watch the most recent episode of Being the Elite, there's a spot where Cody Rhodes is there, and he's talking to fans, and he approaches this one fan and said, if you had a choice between going to WWE Raw or seeing the Bullet Club, who would you choose? And the fan said, in the actual episode, I'm not making this up, this actually happened, the fan told Cody that his ticket for Monday Night Raw was free. He said point blank, his ticket was free. And then everyone in the crowd just starts laughing. And so then Cody says, wow, so like you didn't even buy your ticket. And he just said, no, this is a free ticket. And so then the Young Bucks, they tweeted out to this fan on Twitter. And then other fans on Twitter retweeted the same tweet. And so with each retweet, different fans were also saying that they were given free tickets to the show. So it wasn't like they specifically got a plant for the episode. Like that was just a real fan in the moment that just said, I didn't purchase a ticket for the show. That is what pissed off Vince. They thought, and obviously it would piss off Vince because it doesn't look good. Obviously it doesn't look good. And so that was what made Vince go, you know what, fuck these guys, cease and desist. And of course, they're just like, whatever. So, I mean, Raw's doing all right. I mean, I know their venues are, they're having some issues, but their live event numbers and their Raw numbers, I mean, if most of the time, wherever Raw goes, if it's like 100% of the venue, most shows, they can fill up about 70%, 75%. Like, Raw could be doing better, but they're doing okay. But SmackDown, no, man, SmackDown, this is consistent. Their numbers are getting smaller. The ratings are getting smaller. Their YouTube views, they care about that. Go to WWE's YouTube account. Go to their YouTube account. Check out the views for SmackDown. You'll see that they're considerably less. You can watch like a Raw segment. Like a Raw segment, for instance, could have like on a good week, they'll usually do like highlight videos of Raw. The Raw videos will have like 6 digits. It'll usually be like 800,000 clicks, 700,000 clicks, 650,000 clicks. But if you look at the SmackDown numbers, they're nowhere near as big. They're in the 6 figures, but it's getting smaller. It's like 200,000 clicks, 210,000 clicks, 205,000 clicks, 190,000 clicks, 180,000 clicks. They're getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It's kind of like TNA. When Hogan and Bischoff showed up, like when things were going bad and they kept pushing the WWE guys over the TNA guys in like 2010, 2011, like when things were really bad during that period of time, it's just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And but I do agree with what Matthew said earlier that they basically took like most of the good stuff off of SmackDown, put them on Raw, and they gave SmackDown like the Raw leftovers. So I've been hearing for a while now they're going to do another shakeup, or something. So I'm a little hopeful that maybe things can get better. But my fear going forward is that the product is the same as it is now after Survivor Series. Because if it's like this now after Survivor Series, I can truly see SmackDown going back to how it was, where just no one cared about it. Which would be pointless because that was the whole point of this draft, of this brand split, was to kind of end that rut and kind of go back to how things were like in the early 2000s, where like both shows were kind of good,
Right. Well, that's the thing is, and I even said it on Periscope, I think the other night, is that I said that I think this brand split will be maybe almost non-existent by maybe 2019, late 2018. I just don't. This happens with Vince all the time, and he's done it every single time they've done a brand split. Once the numbers start to go down for SmackDown, he pulls the trigger on a joint show again, and it's history over and over again. And he thinks it's going to be different every time. And I'm not saying that SmackDown is going to be dead and it's unsalvageable. But if it's going down the current path that it is, and I think attendance has something to do with it. I mean, I know some people don't like to downplay some of those photos, but those are telling photos. I mean, this time last year, the arenas did not look like that. So there's something going on where SmackDown is losing value in the fans' eyes. I also think that attendance across the board is down. The NFL attendance is down. The MLB attendance is down. The NBA attendance is down. I think people are less inclined to go to an event nowadays because, the experience at home is just as good. I mean, you can sit on your couch and watch on your 70-inch flat screen LED TV or whatever the hell TV you have. Most people have those big TVs now. You can sit on the couch, watch the show, turn it off when you're done, and that's it. I mean, some people just don't see the value of driving to wherever they're going to drive to watch SmackDown Live, and that's part of the problem that WWE has to recognize and has to fix. Is you've got to give people a reason to get off the couch and come to the event. I've definitely pondered some of that with. Again, I don't want to harp on them, but gender, with some of the booking, with the lack of star power, with all these different aspects. So I think attendance does have a significant role to play in why SmackDown. Matt, what do you think? How much does attendance really affect what's going on in SmackDown?
Honestly, probably not too much. Because attendance isn't really their bread and butter. It's the Dave Meltzer has said numerous times their bread and butter is their TV deal.
Right.
And as long as they get the ratings, desirable ratings, as long as they and you also have the network, which then again is not doing too hot. But I really don't think attendance is going to be that big of a deal to them. In fact, if anything, I I think a lot of the ways Vince would prefer it low attendance, so that way he don't have the smarky chants.
Yeah, maybe he can just fill the crowd with people that like his product.
Exactly. So I don't think that I mean the attendance shows that people don't care, right? But at the same time, it's not their bread and butter. Like the whole reason why uh the whole like they care about ratings, right? That's the reason why Gender's champions. They want the ratings in India.
Well, hold on. If you listen to their conference calls, if you listen to like what the company says, they don't even care about ratings. They have downplayed the ratings consistently. And I don't mean to interrupt you, but Meltzer and I listen to Meltzer consistently. I'm a big fan of Mr. Meltzer. That he made a great point that WWE has convinced themselves, and it's not even like that somebody else has convinced them. They've convinced themselves that ratings don't matter and attendance doesn't matter. That all that matters is their social media interactions and the network. And those two things are, in their eyes, are going to propel them into the next evolution of the way the internet's going and the way the product is going to eventually evolve. So, and that may be a flawed concept. That they might be right. They might be 100% right that social media and the network is all that matters now, and they can continue to work on that. But the thing is, and a thing that people don't realize is that they get so much money off their TV rights deal. I mean, that is the bulk of their revenue is that TV rights. And if the ratings continue to go down, when the cycle is up, which is 2020, I believe that their deal, 2019 is when their deal is up with USA. USA might offer them something much significantly lower. And
so here's the perfect storm that some fans are hoping for, and I don't want to get anybody's hopes up. And the chances of this happening, I'm a realist. I'm not an optimist. So the chances of this happening, I'd say, is possible, but it's very small unless something changes. I'd say the chances of this happening is maybe 25% or less. So what's going on right now is what you just said is accurate. Their TV deal is going to expire in 2019. And, so either USA will help renew them, the same deal, or if they're not satisfied with the ratings, then they could get a low ball offer. And what Jay predicts and what many others feel is that they think that eventually WWE is going to be removed from television entirely, and that they're just going to stream exclusively, like on Facebook and other social media outlets and stuff. Now, as far as like where the 25% chance comes in, what's going on is that earlier this year, New Japan, they had their own American G1 show, and the California area, and it did very well, and they were producing good business. And the truth is, New Japan, they could have did a lot more than just one show, but they're smart. They're not being overly ambitious like how Hogan and Bischoff were when they came to TNA in 2010. So they're taking the turtle route over the hare route. And from what I understand, New Japan, they're going to be establishing their American base of operations in California. So just like how WWE has two rosters, like the Raw roster and the SmackDown roster, it seems like the ultimate end game, and it will take New Japan some time to do this, but it seems like their ultimate end game is to literally have two rosters of their own, a Japanese roster and an American roster. That is what the IWGP US title that Kenny Omega has. That's the point of it. Like right now, fans are still confused because it's in the early process of it. But the reason I'm bringing all this up is Kenny Omega said on Twitter, and he said there after he won the US title after G1, is that he believes that New Japan can legitimately fill a 10,000 seat venue. And I believe it can. If they advertise it well, and if their product, continues to grow, and because I know their New Japan World subscribers are going up. But the reason I'm bringing all this up is if this positive momentum continues, right? If they keep growing, I could see potentially, and it's a very small chance, but potentially, I could see USA Network basically giving them a deal. But this is like, you know, a really, really like crazy, like the chances of it happening is like less than like for this to happen, the ratings would have to continually go down. And you know what I'm saying? It's like when you have an old toy and then you see a shiny new toy. It's like, let's give those guys a shot. You see what I'm saying? So,
Right.
yeah, that's something that could potentially happen, like in 2019. But in order for that to happen, the ratings and the attendance sales for WWE would have to consistently continue to drop. And I don't think that. I think push comes to shove, if Vince sees that things are as the deadline to the USA gets closer and closer, I would like to believe that Vince and Triple H would be like, okay, we're getting a little too close here. Let's see what we can do. You know what I mean? You know.
Well, the only thing that WWE can really rejoice in the fact that is that USA itself doesn't do great numbers. That Raw is their highest rated show, I believe. So expect like you have a network which I think would really suffer if they lost WWE. I mean, WWE programs 5 hours of live content on their show on their network every week. So, I mean, it's in the USA has really struggled as far as like coming up with brand new shows and advertising. I mean, WWE is used as a way for them to advertise their shows. So that's another key element there is that they might get a great offer from USA regardless of their ratings because their ratings are still higher than anything USA produces. But the only question, and I was one of the people that convinced that WWE is going to move toward social media platforms as far as their next TV deal. I think that's just, I think technology and the way social media is moving is, it's 2017. We got 2 more years until their rights deal is up. I can easily see them moving to Twitter, to Facebook, to move to one of those platforms where
Twitch.
they're exposed to Twitch, another one, any of those platforms. You open yourself up to brand new viewers, brand new or past viewers. So WWE, SmackDown Live, Raw definitely should reevaluate kind of their priorities because I still think attendance matters. I still think ratings matter, especially right now. So I don't know. I think the way that the people watch Raw and SmackDown on a weekly basis has changed significantly. Obviously, people aren't really making the time to watch the show from start to finish. I know I don't. I pop in here and there. I watch highlights on Facebook and Twitter. So why not just cut the middleman out? Why not just broadcast on Facebook and Twitter? I mean, and you can even do a thing where if you can hook up with the right network, you can hook up with the right network that will allow you to simulcast the show on a social media platform. Twitter does it all the time where they broadcasted the presidential debates. They've broadcasted sports events. Yahoo just showed the what's it called, the London game for the NFL. I mean, there's definitely some places where they can do that, and I don't think it's that far-fetched that Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, one of these freaking social media giants, and tries to make some money off them. So,
well, you brought up a good point. Like, Vince McMahon has USA by the balls. I mean, he really does. Because I mean, what else does USA people watch? Like
Mr. Robot, maybe.
Mr. Robot never even. That shows you.
It won a couple of awards. I mean, somewhat popular, I guess.
I mean, I guess I don't know. I guess I'm just old, but so McMahon has him by the balls. Even let's say that, and he knows that Raw is USA. I mean, and we saw in the past when Raw was on TNN from what 2000, from 2000 to 2005 or 2006,
something like that.
It was and then USA had to beg him to come back. and or pay them King's ransom to come back. So McMahon isn't like a but. If USA doesn't want the show, there'll be 3 or 4 other networks, big time networks.
I don't know about that.
Well, you won't. I mean, WWE will never end up on Pop TV.
That's true. That's true.
Or Destination America.
Right.
So, but I think I don't. As far as McMahon losing, them losing any money on television, I highly doubt it's going to happen.
Right.
And I highly doubt that they're going to switch to Facebook or Twitter format because that's 3 hours. That's just then they lose a bunch of their old fan base. People like my dad who's been watching wrestling since the 40s. Well, he's not quite that old, but you get the idea.
Right.
And so I think that they're just going to get. I think that they're just going to keep trying the WWE network. And eventually, I mean, if anything, they'll just stream completely on the WWE network.
Well, that's definitely a possibility too. I mean, but the only thing with putting on the network, putting Raw and SmackDown on the network is then you truly make your product a niche product. You really you cut off a lot of people, and you'll only be broadcasting to your 1.5 million follower subscribers. That's a part of it too. Is that I mean, eventually, who knows? Maybe if they can find, I just don't ever see them fully broadcasting Raw and SmackDown on their network unless they've come to terms with the idea that they're a niche product. Unless they come to that idea that they've succumbed to the idea of being a mainstream product and they are now a niche product.
Well, yeah, I think they're slowly becoming more and more niche, right? Because you look, they don't have the big advertisers they had anymore. At one point,
Right.
At one point they had some of the biggest names, begging for slots, but now you don't.
And they still get some of those big advertisers for like big events, but you're definitely right with the week to week product. They don't have those huge advertisers anymore.
I mean, you look at WrestleMania, for example. They have Final Fantasy 14 as their main advertiser, which Don't get me wrong, great game. I'm playing it right now. Love the game. But it's not, it's not like freaking what was a big advertiser for WrestleMania?
32 they had Snickers. Snickers is a pretty big advertiser.
Yeah, it's not like Snickers or
Mountain Dew. Right.
Mountain Dew. Definitely not like Mountain. I remember Mountain Dew used to with Michael Cole and Jerry the King Lawler used to have to stomach down Mountain Dew at the announce table.
The funny thing about that too is that if you ever notice, Lawler's the only one that ever drank them.
Yeah.
Cole would never open his, and then I think Graves would really never open his either. And then you could see fucking Lawler just chugging down these fucking Mountain Dews.
And then he had a heart attack
right.
6 months later. But point is like, I mean, it's slowly becoming more and more niche, right? I mean, USA sure as hell isn't getting the advertising revenue they used to from them. And so it's coming down to, like you said, WWE being the only show worth watching on USA.
Right.
So, personally, I think the biggest mistake from SmackDown, and this will be the last point I make, I promise, is them swapping. Is them actually going to UFC, ever swapping the cable. They should have kept it on a network TV, but that's for another time.
Yeah. So, Toph, go ahead.
Yeah, the last thing for me to talk about is I didn't really bring them up that much. I'll talk a little bit about the woman, the females, the Divas division, like so many names. The women's division is kind of the opposite of Raw. Like on Raw, they just can't make up their mind. It's just been hot potatoing. Really, I mean that's a really good future article. You could argue that 2017 has been one of the weaker years, just in general.
Weaker years of meaning like
titles.
what?
Titles.
Oh, titles. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. On Raw, it's just been hot potatoing. Whereas on SmackDown, it's just like they're just kind of treading along, but nothing's really happening. You know, like Becky Lynch finally won a belt.
What the heck happened to Becky, man? She was like champion, and then she's just never sniffed that title again.
Yeah, she won it. then she lost it to Alexa. Really, Alexa is the only person that I can say has kind of benefited from, because she's a lot bigger now because of that. Then Alexa lost it to Naomi. Then Naomi lost it to Natty. And Carmella's Money in the Bank holder. And Becky's just kind of there for whatever reason.
Right.
And Charlotte's just kind of there. And now it's like they just kind of realize, oh, yeah, Charlotte's here. Let's use her. So not bad, not good, just there. I won't shit on them. I mean, when they have matches, they work hard. So, that's cool. But,
yeah.
That's about
I
it.
can't really hate it. Yeah, I really can't hate on the women either. I mean, they're doing their best, and they can only do what they're given, and it's tough for them too. I mean, right. So in wrapping up here, I mean, I guess we can just kind of go around and give our thoughts on, if you had to give a number rating on where SmackDown is right now, and then maybe give a prediction on where SmackDown will be by the end of the year, maybe we can say, or maybe by this time next year. What would you say? For me, right now, I would give SmackDown a solid 7, I would say, out of 10. I think it's still a watchable show. I could still tune in, sit down for 2 hours, and watch it and be content. I never walk away from SmackDown going, oh, that was just a terrible show. I mean, I walk away from Raw a lot saying that, wow, that was a terrible show. But I never really walk away from SmackDown and go, man, that show was just atrocious in every form or fashion. Whereas Raw, I do that quite often. So I will say 7 out of 10 is pretty good. I think they're a solid show. By this time next year, I would think they would be doing some different things. I would hope that they have a new authority figure, because my thoughts on Shane McMahon have been well documented, and I'm sick of Shane McMahon. So I'm hoping they have that, and maybe some more star power. They need somebody on that show. I mean, I hope, and this is a total side note, but I believe the end game for Kevin Owens is to feud with Triple H. And I hope that they keep that feud on SmackDown. And I think that would make sense. And I think that would really add another level to that show. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of bringing the authority back, but I do think that Triple H coming back maybe as a babyface feuding with Kevin Owens, that might be pretty good, personally. We haven't seen babyface Hunter in a long time. And obviously, I would love to see that. So, Toph, go ahead. Give me your 1 to 10 rating on where SmackDown is and where it will be by this time next year.
I'm going to give it a 6. Matt might understand this reference a little bit more. Anyone that watches anime or plays certain types of video games, there's there's the canon storyline, which is important, and then there's filler, which is just kind of there. It's just kind of kill time. Filler is just there to build up to the next big storyline, big arc. I agree with what Aaron said, that you never walk away from SmackDown saying that's horrible. But for the past few months, I don't walk away from SmackDown saying that was a great show either.
Right.
Like for instance, like as an example, I'm a really big fan of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I love the first one, love the second one, love the third one. The fourth one was like they could have did without that one. If you took one of the neuralizers from Men in Black and erased my memory of the fourth Pirates movie, it wouldn't change anything, because it really didn't add anything. It didn't add anything to the franchise. It wasn't good. It wasn't bad. It was just there. That's kind of how SmackDown is. SmackDown is just sort of there for me. Is it a quick 2-hour watch? Sure it is, but is it something that I'm going to put priority on, like I would for Lucha Underground or New Japan or NXT? At this point, the answer is no. So I want to give them a 6, because I believe that everybody there is working hard. So because they're working hard, I'm not going to be mean and give them like a 4 or a 3. But at the same time, I cannot in good conscience give them like an 8 or a 9, because the storylines and the booking of the show is just too bad for me to give it anything higher than a 6. So I'm going to give it a 6 right now. And I hope in a year from now, I hope that whenever this supposed second shakeup happens, that it makes it feel better. And I'm going to hope that the show is doing better a year from now. So.
All right, Matt, what do you think?
Well, if I could rate it just off of the show having Kevin Owens, I would rate it a 10, but I can't do that. So I don't know. I'm gonna go with. Can I go? Can we give like half letter grades?
Sure, do whatever you want.
Like 5.5, cause I mean, it's not 5.5, 6.5, cause I feel like the things that really just eat at me is Baron Corbin, just him being on the show at all, him being even employed in the company, the inconsistency, the stop and start storylines. They're not making use of the great talent they have. And it just reminded me of TNA in general, but especially around the like 2008, 2006 to 2008 TNA. But so, and then as far as what would be this time next year, hard to say. Because we know how stubborn McMahon is, and we're starting to see how stubborn Road Dogg is. So I don't know. I think maybe this time next year, hopefully maybe Shinsuke will be champion for like a whole full year. Probably not, but I'm hoping at least there's some reason for me not to fast forward through promos or through half the episode. So we'll see.
Since you just reminded me of something. We've barely. You've joked about him a few times, but we didn't really talk about Baron Corbin. All I can really say about Baron Corbin is he's Matt Morgan 2.0, but Matt Morgan was more athletic than Baron Corbin is. I remember like there was this period of time. I remember this vividly. There was like a moderate amount of fans that there was like a really large amount of fans that don't even like TNA. They hated TNA. But they were like huge Matt Morgan fans. They would like watch TNA just to see Matt Morgan. They were like, "Yeah, Matt Morgan's the future. They should like push this guy."
Who the fuck were these people?
I don't know. I don't know, man. But Matt Morgan had like this weird following, and I remember like when the Main Event Mafia thing was like kind of coming to a close. There was like this kind of on again, off again thing with Morgan, where it was like they were gonna put the belt on him, but it was like they couldn't make up their mind or whatever. Anyway, Morgan wasn't really any good. He had size, he had some agility, but when I look at Baron Corbin, it's like the exact same. Like Baron Corbin, he comes out and they keep saying how he has a presence. I'm like, he's just a tall guy, really. Like take away that and that's it, really.
Right.
All his feuds are the same too. Like, have you noticed there's no real evolution to his feuds? It's like he starts shit with somebody, he jumps them, and then it's like the next week he jumps them backstage, or like when they're in the middle of a match, he jumps them. It's like a DQ or a count out or whatever. And then like it just kind of loops that way until eventually it leads to a match where he wins and then he moves on to the next feud. And it's like the same old, same old. A lot of people really think that Baron Corbin's like the future and they think that he has like potential. And it's like, I don't see it at all. I did enjoy his anti-indie gimmick in NXT, though. That was funny. I loved it when he told Apollo to go back to Ring of Honor. That was great.
Yeah, when he never was ever in Ring of Honor.
Right.
Yeah.
But the question with Baron Corbin I've always had is that I think, listen, I liked him in NXT. I thought he was really developing a lot of like tools to become a good main event talent, and I felt like he was developing nicely, and that goes a lot. That goes a lot for like a lot of the people that were brought up in this most recent like call up spree, where you have like Baron, Nia, like people like that, where all these people were doing very well on NXT, and they were gaining like momentum, and for some reason they get onto the main roster and it's totally different. And I think Baron Corbin suffered from that. I also think he suffered from just his promos just aren't believable. Like if he just has this like this tone of just his voice level. Yeah, his voice level never goes up or down, no matter how he's feeling. It just kind of stays at the same level, and that's something that I've criticized Roman Reigns about as well. That Roman Reigns never really shows me any passion, and I criticized him a ton about him. That he just never and that's how I feel about Baron Corbin, where he just never shows me like never has a segment where I go, wow, that was just a really great promo, and he really sold me on the match he's trying to sell me or the angle or whatever. And that's one of the biggest problems I've had with Baron Corbin. And obviously, Matt, you don't really like him very much either.
Well, he's like, I mean, like when he was Mr. Money in the Bank, I was dreading. I was like, oh god, he's going to cash in SummerSlam on Shinsuke, and then we're going to have to deal with like a 4 to 6 month Baron Corbin reign. And I like, you don't understand how much I marked out when he lost the briefcase. I was like, oh, like I'm an avowed atheist, and I had a religious experience, but it happened, and it's just he just seems always bored,
Right.
and he's a dickhead on Twitter. Well, so is Roman Reigns, but he doesn't have the BJ skills Roman Reigns has. But he's just a complete dick to everybody, and I mean he's a failure in everything he's done. He was a failure in the NFL. He was a failure in arena football. He probably played for Canadian football at one point. Failed at that. And you said that he was called from NXT too early. You got to remember, he was in NXT when Seth Rollins was. Yeah,
right. He's been around for a long time. I'm just saying he was really hitting his stride and really starting to develop quite nicely, in my opinion, at least.
I don't think he was. Like he had time to go from having a completely shaven head in NXT to like having whatever the fuck he's wearing now, that like reverse gullet, or whatever.
I've always said he's got to shave his head or something. He's got to do something about the hair.
And he's got to make it to where his belly doesn't look like a frowny face when he removes the shirt.
Well, that's why he wears the shirt.
But he's just a waste of space, man. Like I could think of I could think of like 4 or 5 other talents without being smarky that can have his spot. He's just tall. He's boring.
It's an obsession with Vince still liking tall guys. Like,
Vince loves those tall guys, man.
Yeah, if you made Corbin, I'll tell you what, man. If you made Corbin like 3 inches smaller and you made Sami Zayn 2 inches taller, Sammy would have a spot. Sammy would have a spot. He was so happy.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I was talking to. Who was I talking to this about? My buddy. I think my buddy Joel. Where I was talking about Adam Cole. Totally off topic, but Adam Cole just. Well, I was messaging the group about this too. I just feel like Adam Cole is in this, like, he's the worst of the best wrestlers in the world, if that makes any sense. Where if you're taking all the best wrestlers in the world, you put them all into this group, and then you had to rank them all. I think Cole would be toward the bottom. I'm not saying that Corbin's like that, but I'm saying that Corbin has this thing about him where there's something just missing. He doesn't really have any true value, and a lot of the value he does have has been produced by WWE for the most part. So I don't know, Matt, were you going to say something there?
Yeah, just obligatory fuck Baron Corbin.
Okay.
And as a metalhead, he makes me ashamed to be a metalhead.
Can we just really, if we're talking about metal, well, not really metal, but if we're talking about music, can we just for a second just shit on Jinder Mahal a little bit more for one of his favorite bands being Nickelback? I mean, can we?
He had to be trying to get heel heat with that.
I don't know. He seemed pretty convincing. He was pretty convincing when he was in the video. He was like, yeah, Nickelback. I jammed to Nickelback all the time, and I'm like, oh my god,
he is
get out of
Canadian.
here, dude. Yeah,
he is Canadian.
That is the most Canadian thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, that's like the number one thing to the list that WWE wants you to forget about Jinder Mahal. He's actually Canadian. Right. But now, like, I mean, all in all, like, I've said all my piece. Just fuck Baron Corbin. I hope we'll see him featured endeavor by like 2019, and may he go to the depths of GFL where he GFW where he belongs.
All right. Well, I think that's a nice way to end the show here. Any final comments or concerns or anything like that?
Nope.
Nope. All right.
I would like to do a future show of you guys about a different topic when you guys are free, maybe sometime next week or whenever.
Oh, yeah. I have nothing. I have no life. I'm down for that.
Okay, cool.
Well, yeah. I mean, we've been talking about doing more stuff on the YouTube channel as it is, so we'll definitely do more of these. Bill's pretty keen on doing pay-per-view reviews or pre-shows every pay-per-view, so we'll probably do one for Hell in a Cell. And we'll try to stay consistent with them. I know everyone has busy lives and schedules, and all that
Like
stuff.
as far as like what we do, like I think it would be. I mean, so much. I mean, reviewing is so like passe, right? Everybody's doing it.
Right. Right.
Yeah, white culture doing it. Well, I mean, you probably won't have them doing it for much longer, but after the Exodus. But I think like a nice roundtable discussion like this is, or a debate sometimes, just something more intellectually stimulating than regurgitating thoughts.
Right. And we used to do a lot of these. Jay was known for being on Wrestling Roundtable, so maybe we'll do a little revival of that, maybe that concept, and do some like broader topics.
All right. Well, just to give you a heads up, Aaron, you're gonna like the next topic very much, or you might not like it very much. It's kind of 50-50. But
all right, don't try and work me, Toph. Just tell me what it is.
Prepare to possibly defend your boy Triple H. That's all I gotta say.
No, we're not. No, I have put my my public. I don't even know how to put this, but my public defense of Triple H, I do not try to indulge in, because my heart pressure, my blood pressure starts to go up, and we don't want to see me die on the air. So.
Well, this debate indirectly involves him, not fully, but I think he plays a part in it. So, for the next roundtable discussion that we're going to do, I would like to. We're going to have to get a much bigger roundtable. I mean, you guys are cool, but for this to work, we're probably going to need, preferably, maybe 5 or 7 people. The next discussion is we're going to be talking about the mystery of WrestleMania 19.
Oh boy!
Wait, what's the mystery?
The buy rates. The buy rates were not good.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's because freaking Triple H and Ric Flair went all freaking racist. You never will go freaking racist.
Yeah, Dave Meltzer usually does like a little blog on it every year to see if he found something new about it, and he never does. It's one of the big mysteries, because the show was built up very well. The card was built up very well, and actually the show itself was very good. It was done in a baseball arena, which hasn't been done since then, I believe.
Safeco Field.
Right, right. Visually, it was one of the cooler manias to look at. But from top to bottom, it was a really enjoyable show. Yet for some reason, and I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, I'll look it up and have it by then. But for some reason, the buy rates for that mania were horrible. They were nowhere near as good as 17, 18, and the following year, 20. Also did better numbers. So it's one of those weird kind of like what happened. And
that's my favorite mania too, which is crazy.
It's a very underrated mania too. Like when they're doing their because if you notice, when it's around WrestleMania time, when they do the mania montages where they show manias of the past, if you notice,
there's like no clips from that.
Yeah, they never show 19. That's why. Apparently Vince doesn't like it. He doesn't like 19. It's unfortunate.
I don't know. That's my favorite
set, right?
What's that, man?
Even shows in the set, right? That was the one with like the half completed set, right? The one with the skyscraper and stuff. Or was that 18?
It was like a corner one where it'd come around like the corner. It'd start one way and then turn and then.
But yeah, let's see, 19. I don't remember much about 19 actually.
Oh, if you don't remember, then just go on the network and watch it. And I know, Aaron, you're going to remember a lot more about it than I do, because that was like when Triple H was, because he was a big part of that particular.
When he was the game.
Right. That was like
the Reign of Terror.
That was before Evolution, though, right?
No, it was during.
No, I'm pretty sure it was before, right?
Yeah.
No. It was just when Flair and Triple H were just together by themselves.
Oh, okay.
Yes, but by 20, Evolution was a thing, right?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So
I'll
I'll need you to do your homework on that, Aaron. I'll need Matt to watch the 19, and I'm just gonna try to like see what I can find about the different buy rates and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched 19 like 100 times, so I know it pretty well. I'll watch it one more time before if we do this idea. And I was one of the only people that rejoiced when Triple H won the title or retained his title. So, I'll have a different perspective, I'm sure, from everybody else.
I want to Triple H's butt.
I have too, yeah. When he did the I remember it from when he mooned Vince McMahon after DX reunited.
No,
in 06.
in a live show. It was when I was like in 6th grade. Shawn Michaels pantsed him.
Oh, a live event?
Huh?
Live event?
Yeah, he pantsed him.
That's awesome.
I'm sorry, I figured that was like a great way to end the show.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap it up because we've been on here forever. So I'm Aaron Ramadanov, Matthew Jackson, Christopher Epps. Thank you guys. Make sure you head over to PWPNation.com. News, articles, podcasts, videos, everything you could possibly want is over there. I'll have a new article coming out this week. It is on the Brock Lesnar thing, and I've touched on it on Periscope a couple times, how Brock Lesnar, I believe, is hurting WWE's main event picture. I'll go into that and talk about that. And thanks, guys, and we'll see you guys soon.
See ya.
Later.